Long before skyscrapers touched the clouds, and before history books had pages, there was a land between two rivers. The people who lived there did not call it Mesopotamia. They called it home. And what they left behind was not just stone and dust, but messages pressed into clay, waiting for thousands of years to be heard again. Imagine standing in the desert as the sun sets, the wind moving across ruins older than memory itself. Beneath your feet lie tablets, fragile yet defiant, carrying symbols no one alive today was meant to read. For centuries, they slept in silence, until one day someone picked them up, brushed off the sand, and realized these were not decorations. They were records. The Sumerians were among the first people to write, not stories for entertainment, but records of gods, kings, floods, beginnings, and endings. They etched their words into wet clay using reed tools, never knowing their voices would echo into a future they could not imagine. What startled modern scholars was not just how old these tablets were, but what they said. They spoke of a time when the world was young, when civilization began suddenly, not slowly, when cities rose with laws, calendars, agriculture, and astronomy already in place. There was no long period of confusion recorded, no gradual learning curve. Order appeared almost fully formed, as if knowledge had arrived already complete. They wrote of beings who descended from the heavens, not as distant myths, but as active participants in human affairs. These beings instructed, warned, judged, and governed. Knowledge was given, not discovered. Humanity was guided, not wandering blindly. And humans themselves were not described as accidental. One tablet tells of a great flood, not a local storm, not a seasonal overflow, but a flood meant to wipe out humanity. The language is chillingly specific. The waters rose, the storms raged, the land disappeared beneath the waves, cities vanished, life was erased, and one man was warned beforehand. He was not the strongest, not the wealthiest. He was chosen because he listened. He was told the flood was coming. He was instructed to build a vessel. Detailed measurements were given. Materials were specified. The vessel was to be sealed. Life was to be preserved. Judgment would come, but mercy would follow. This story was written thousands of years before the book of Genesis was copied onto parchment. And yet, the parallels are impossible to ignore. Another tablet describes the creation of mankind, not through slow trial and error, but through deliberate design. Humans were formed from clay, mixed with divine essence, earth and breath combined, matter and spirit joined together. Humanity was created to work, to steward, to maintain order in the world. Clay, breath, purpose. The words are simple, yet profound. Humans were not born meaningless. They were created with intention. They were placed within creation, not above it, not beneath it, but responsible for it. These were not primitive myths scribbled by uneducated people. The Sumerians understood mathematics, star movement, and time in ways that still confuse historians. They divided the circle into 360 degrees. They developed complex systems of accounting. They tracked celestial cycles with precision. They mapped the heavens and linked human events to cosmic order. They understood time not as chaos, but as structure. And then there are the kings. The Sumerian king list is one of the most unsettling documents ever discovered. It records rulers who reigned for impossibly long periods, tens of thousands of years. These reigns are described as occurring before the Great Flood. After the flood, something changes. Lifespans shorten dramatically, reigns become human-sized. A sharp dividing line appears in history. Before the flood, rulers lived extraordinarily long lives. After the flood, they did not. Scholars debate whether these numbers are symbolic, literal, or misunderstood, but debate does not erase the pattern. Something happened, something catastrophic, something that altered humanity itself. As archaeologists continued translating the tablets, another theme emerged again and again: conflict. not merely between nations, but between divine forces. Order versus chaos, authority challenged, boundaries crossed, judgment released, mercy preserved. The gods of the Sumerians were not distant ideas. They were close, too close. They interfered with human affairs. They punished corruption. They withdrew favor. They demanded obedience. They shaped history according to laws humanity could not change. Over time, these stories traveled. As people migrated, the stories migrated with them. Names changed, languages evolved, cultures reshaped the narratives. But the core remained: creation, rebellion, judgment, survival, renewal. You find the same skeleton repeated in cultures separated by oceans and centuries. Flood stories appear worldwide. Creation from earth and breath appears again and again. A lost golden age, a catastrophic reset, a hope for restoration. Civilizations rose and fell, languages disappeared, empires collapsed, but the clay tablets endured. Some believe these records prove ancient astronauts. Others claim they reveal advanced lost civilizations. Some dismiss them as myth. But perhaps the most unsettling possibility is simpler than all of that. What if these ancient people were recording real events, filtered through human understanding? What if they encountered something beyond themselves and preserved it the only way they could? The Sumerians did not think they were writing myths. They believed they were recording history. They believed the world had a beginning. They believed humanity had purpose. They believed moral order existed, and they believed disobedience carried consequences. And that raises a haunting question. If people thousands of years ago recorded floods, creation, judgment, and divine intervention, and if similar stories appear independently across cultures worldwide, then maybe these narratives are not coincidences. Maybe they are fragments. Fragments of a truth humanity has been retelling since the beginning. A truth too large to preserve perfectly, but too important to forget. When you hold a Sumerian tablet in your hand, you are touching a voice that predates Abraham, predates Moses, predates recorded scripture. And yet the themes feel strangely familiar. Order from chaos, light from darkness, life given purpose. Humanity accountable to something higher than itself. The clay tablets do not tell us everything. They were never meant to. They whisper rather than shout. They hint rather than explain. They leave space for wonder, for interpretation, for reflection. But they remind us of something modern culture often forgets. Humanity has always known it was not alone. From the very beginning, people sensed a higher authority, a greater intelligence, a moral presence shaping history, watching, guiding, correcting. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this. Even in the earliest days of civilization, humanity was already asking the same questions we ask today. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Who is watching? And what happens when we forget who we are? The sand may bury cities, time may erase empires, but truth has a way of resurfacing. Sometimes it rises through discovery, sometimes through memory, sometimes through stories pressed into clay, and sometimes it waits patiently, for thousands of years, until the world is quiet enough and curious enough to listen again.